Hey everyone, if you're watching this, you're probably a first-time founder trying to calculate the valuation of your startup idea or business if it's already running. And if you do go for a round of funding, trying to figure out how much do you need and what percentage of your company as an equity stake you should be giving away. And it's no surprise that 90% of first-time founders get this wrong. I got this wrong the first time I started a business. And not to say I'm the expert at it now, but I wanted to map out a really simple way on how you can calculate this, especially in a market where investors are a lot more frugal with their money in the year 2025 and beyond, right? So I'm going to break it down into three portions where we calculate the realistic valuation. Realistic is the key word here. Then I want to calculate how much money do you really need under a hypothetical scenario and the percentage of the company you need to give away to get that capital. Right, and I'll show you how to calculate all this stuff. And the reason why most people fail is as a first-time founder, you probably value your company way too high, which probably doesn't even get you through the door with a lot of investors today. And you end up giving away too much equity because you don't really know what your company's worth yet, but you're desperate for that first capital injection, right? So let's get started. Now, we're going to start with calculating what a realistic valuation for your company should be. And the first thing that you should really be doing is thinking about your revenue multiplier, right? Figuring out or forecasting how much revenue you could generate within a 12-month period. Okay, so you kind of think about what your monthly revenue is, and then you think about what it should be over a 12-month or 1-year period. And let's say you think it's 100K over 12 months, right, in terms of revenue. First thing I want you to do is to slash that and replace it with 60K. And even explain to a potential investor you're doing that to be extremely conservative. Sure, there's an upside scenario that you can calculate if you want, where you could hit 100K within the first 12 months, but go with 60 because it shows that you're being very aware that, you know, sometimes you hit your goals and sometimes you don't. It's your first time, okay? And then it becomes industry specific when you apply a revenue multiplier to that number. Right? If you're in software as a service, SaaS, it's quite high. You know, it could be a 3 to 5x, or if it's an e-commerce business, it's a 2x. If it's a marketplace business, it might be a 3x. But in this scenario, we're going to pretend you're running a SaaS business, right? A technology company. So we'll go by a 4x multiplier. So if you multiply the 60K by 4, we're sitting at a 240K kind of revenue multiplier value right now. But what investors really love to see, and they almost apply further multipliers to this hypothetical number, is if you've got any traction, right? So if you've got any paying customers or if you've got some strong growth, there's some multipliers that you can further add on to this, okay? And this really depends on who you speak to, right? You know, every investor, whether it be a VC, you know, whether it be private wealth, whether it be a conglomerate or a company like Y Combinator that's helping startups, they've got their own multipliers, but I'm going to use a couple here. And as long as you justify them, honestly, calculating the valuation of your business is a bit of an art. It's not a science, right? It's kind of BS to a degree, but that's why you're doing it in a very conservative manner so you could back it and you think it's realistic. So let's say if you've got paying customers, I'd like to think you could apply 1.5 multiply to that. And then let's say you've got some strong growth, you know, month on month, you can apply another 1.2x multiplier on that. So this is especially if you've been running your business in ghost mode or you've been doing it for a year or two and you've got some data to show what you're doing. So we take the 240K and if we multiply it by the 1.5, we multiply it by the 1.2, we'll be sitting at around 432K, right? And we're going to call this pre-money. This is your pre-money val. So before you take any money from any investors. So let's remember that number, 432K. Now, if it's your first time and you haven't started and it's just an idea and you don't have any customers or any traction, my advice to you is first try and get those customers, even if it's, you know, very early, you know, people who believe in you or companies. Try and get a little bit of growth because those multipliers really help if you're going to give away a percentage of your business, right? So the next part, we'll bank the 432K is how much money do you actually need? So the thing that you need to think about in the simplest way possible is how much money you're going to be spending on a monthly basis. Like, what's your monthly burn rate, right? And when I say that, think of everything from like rent, from marketing, from salaries, you know, your incidentals, legal, accounting. Rent in this market, you know, if you follow me, you know that my full-time job when I'm not doing startup videos is I lead the flex team for a Fortune 200 prop tech company. and I'm big on flex space and co-working and everything, you probably get some pretty discounted and affordable co-working memberships. So maybe look at that instead of rent because they're flexible too. But what's your burn rate? So hypothetically, we could be like, okay, if you add all of that stuff out that we listed, maybe it's 8K per month. Now I want you to multiply that for the year. So because when you think about it, you need enough money to run for a year. So you'd think 12, right? 12 months. Let's add a bit more to that. Let's add another 6 months as a buffer because you want to ask for maybe 18 months of capital, for seed capital, right? So we'll go 8K times 18 and you're going to be looking at 144K, right? As your burn rate for the 18 months. And again, in the spirit of conservativeness, which investors love, let's add another 20% onto that. So a 1.2 multiplier, because again, another buffer, it's almost force majeure, unexpected stuff. You never know, you might need that extra 20%. Now you're sitting at a cost basis of 173K. You know, a number I like because you factored in all of this conservative behavior behind it. Okay, so that's kind of how much money you need under these hypotheticals. Now, the equity piece. So you've got your pre-money valuation, you've got your burn rate over an 18-month period, because that's, you know, even if you're only asking for a year's worth of money, when you think about it, and you're planning to raise another round, whether it be a Series A or you need more money to grow your business, it's always good to factor in that extra 6 months, which is why we did the 18. That being said, I'm a huge fan of seed strapping. So try and figure out how much money you need to get your business off the ground and then strive for profitability, not just growth, because then you don't need to give away more of your business, right? Because we're on that topic, we're going to talk about the equity percentage. The easiest way to think about that is your investment divided by your post-money valuation, post-money val. So in this case, let's bring these numbers back. Your 173K divided by your 432K plus your 173K. And that's kind of like equal to 29, let's call it 29%. I think it's like 28.6%, but it's around 29%. So in summary, you're basically asking for 173K for 29% of your business, okay? And it's not just about what the right number is, it's also what the right investor is, okay? So this is great because now you've got your pre-money val, which is 432, you've got your burn rate, how much money do you actually need for an 18-month period, your 173K. If you're going to ask today in a very conservative market, you're giving away 29% of your business, at least according to this valuation. Never give over 30%, right? Because you never know if you're going to go raise more capital. It's good to keep that chunk of your business to yourself because as founders also, you want to remain driven. You want to maintain ownership of your business. And then of course, if it grows into this monster of a company, you know, it's always good to have that equity to kind of disperse amongst employees and everyone else. That being said, this video again is for first-time founders. If you're a first-time founder and you knock it out of the park, good on you. You're one of the rare ones. You're a unicorn. For me, it took a few times before I got it right. Okay, so the business I'm most well known for is TwoSpace, where we turn restaurants to co-working companies. We actually bootstrapped the entire way, even though we could have raised capital, because I just didn't like the idea of giving away a chunk of my business, right? Especially because we were profitable very early on because it was a low-cost model, and the money would have just allowed us to grow faster and go global, which we didn't really want to do because sometimes growing too fast is a bad thing, right? We really wanted to fine-tune our product. And we hit a $10 million valuation without any funding whatsoever. And then the reason why I'm called the failed founder is we failed shortly thereafter because of COVID and everything like that. But, you know, a lot of lessons along the way. But coming back to my point, really think about the right investor. Don't just take money. Think about someone who can help you from a mentorship perspective, strategically, introductions, partnerships, all that kind of stuff. And don't necessarily get seduced by entrepreneurs in residence or people who, you know, claim they know their stuff. You know, I could be one of those people on YouTube right now thinking, you know, telling you what to do. Frankly, I position myself as not an expert at everything. This is just how I do stuff and how I would do it if I was valuing a company again today, going conservative. But I'd like to think this video helps you out because it gives you a very clear way to explain how you value your business. I think clarity is the key thing here that you want to come to an investor with, okay? So hopefully that was helpful. Good luck to you, whatever your business is. Use this framework to figure out what your industry is and what you need to do. And if you've got any questions, hit me up in the comments and I'm more than happy to help. So good luck, you got this, and I'll speak to you again soon.